Today, for Junior Church, I thought we'd look at Valentine's Day. What with it being February the 14th and all. Now, I realise that you may not actually be watching this on Valentine's Day. You know, it could have just passed or it could be yet to come. But the beauty of what Valentine's Day represents is that it's important for every day. Anyway, I wonder what comes to mind when you think of Valentine's Day. I guess one of the first things that normally comes to mind when we think of Valentine's Day is love. And love is always represented by a big red heart. But Valentine's Day can often be about the ways we show love to other people, particularly in those yucky, kissy, lovey-dovey sort of ways. It's one of those times of the year where people like to get all romantic and gooey. They might dig out the candles to have a romantic meal. Or they might go to the florist and buy 1 or 12 overpriced for one day only red roses for the person they love. Or they might send a card or some chocolates with the message, "Be my Valentine," or "From your Valentine." It's the sort of day when the world goes mad and all crazy in love. And from one queen to another, it's all about the Queen of Hearts. And here's why.
Off with their heads! Off with his head! Off with his head! If I lose my temper, you lose your head. Understand? Someone's head will roll for this. Here! Off with her! Off with her! Off with her! Off with her head!
Yep, I didn't put the wrong clip in. Valentine's Day is all about someone getting their head chopped off. You see, the 14th of February is the day in the calendar that has traditionally been designated as St. Valentine's Day, and it's the anniversary of the day that he died by having his head chopped off. Now the question becomes, how did we get from a man having his head chopped off to sending anonymous love notes to people, or wanting to get all cuddly and romantic and tell people that we love them? There's got to be a story behind that. Well, actually there are lots of stories, but I'll tell you why I think it's important to remember St. Valentine as a good representative of love. Most of the stories about St. Valentine start in the same way. In the Roman Empire, between the years 250 and 300, the guy who was Caesar at that point decided he wanted his army to be the best, and he recruited soldiers from across the empire. Whenever people saw his army, he wanted his enemies to be afraid because he had the biggest and the strongest and the bravest soldiers. Now, in order to make sure his men were the best, he decided that there had to be some rules. Things like having the best armour and weapons, eating the best food, and training the right way. And that they had to stay away from girls. There was definitely to be no falling in love or getting married allowed for his soldiers. If they got married, they'd be soft and weak and wouldn't want to fight in case they got hurt. They'd be more worried about going home safely to their wives than they would about making Caesar look good. But in spite of the rules, and as happens in all of these stories, some Christian soldiers began to fall in love, and naturally they wanted to get married. Which was great, except, well, it was illegal for them to get married. And actually, if they broke the law, it wasn't just a case of being told they were naughty and asked not to do it again, or getting the sack. Instead, they'd have their heads chopped off for breaking the law and letting Caesar himself down. Anyway, back to our love story. There was a bishop who heard about the Christian soldiers and that they wanted to get married. He thought that the rules that Caesar had made were wrong, and decided to take matters into his own hands. He secretly got messages out to the soldiers and told them that he was willing to help them to get married. So this bishop, called Valentine, opened his church in secret and married the soldiers. but they had to promise to keep it a secret, because if Caesar found out, they would all be at risk of losing their heads. The problem with secrets, though, is that very often they get out. And somebody told Caesar that Bishop Valentine was doing what Caesar had said not to. And Caesar wasn't happy. Valentine was arrested. He was put in prison, and shortly after, he had his head chopped off. Now, in some variations of the story, he meets a girl while he's in prison, who he heals from blindness, which is one of the miracles that the Catholic Church recognised to turn him into a saint. And there are rumours that he fell in love with her, and that just before his death, he wrote her a letter that he signed "From your Valentine," which is probably where we get the idea of all the romance and the cards from today. But they're not important to my retelling and understanding. To help me understand why St. Valentine is all about the love, I want to quote Bagheera, who was paraphrasing Jesus in his monologue in the Jungle Book when they think Baloo has died whilst trying to save Mowgli from Shere Khan.
Now, I know how you feel. But you must remember, Mowgli, greater love hath no one than he who lays down his life for his friend. When great deeds are remembered in this jungle, one name will stand above all others. Our friend, Baloo, the bear.
He's cracking me up.
The memory of Baloo's sacrifice and bravery will forever be engraved on our saddened hearts.
Beautiful.
Like I say, Bagheera quotes Jesus, and Jesus doesn't say greater love has no one than the size of their love hearts, or the romanticness of their candle-lit dinner, or the redness of their roses, or the quality of their card and chocolates, or how well they get crazy in love. What Jesus does say is greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. And that is what I think is important about the story and the life of St. Valentine. It's not just that he might have sent a love letter to a young lady, though, that is a really nice thing to do. But for me, it's more important that he tried to help other people to show their love for each other. And he showed his love for them by doing so even when it was dangerous, and his life was on the line. And I think that Valentine probably did that because, as a bishop, it's what he understood happens in God's big story, and what he saw in the life of Jesus. That Jesus lived in such a way that it was about both him showing love to people, but also helping people to love one another, and to love God, and it cost him his life. Jesus believed that love was important enough to die for. The way I understand the Bible best is to see the big picture that goes throughout it. What happens in this mega story is that God loves the world. And when the world recognises God, they love him back. And God asks the people of the world to do two things that sound really simple, but when we look through history are actually really difficult. One is to love the planet, and the other is to love each other, and to help everyone to know that they are loved by God. Jesus lived in such a way that broke some of the normal things that happened around him, that reminded people of things they knew but had forgotten about loving each other, and loved people who didn't know what it was like to be loved. And because of that, Jesus was arrested and was killed on the cross, because he showed love in ways that made other people uncomfortable. From that point on, this weird group of people called Christians entered history. And when Christians understand Jesus properly, what they do is live in such a way that shows love to the world. and to other people, and makes it possible for people to be loved and show love even when it's difficult or dangerous to do so. Kinda like St. Valentine helping people to get married and show their love for each other when Caesar said it wasn't allowed. And it was this love that meant he gave up his life, just like Jesus. Which brings us back to that verse. And so when I think about love and the story of St. Valentine, I also think about Jesus, and that the best love is about being willing to give everything to help other people know that they are loved. Valentine's Day isn't just about hugs and kisses and cards and chocolates and roses and candlelight, as fun as those things are, and as nice as it is to know that we're loved. But Valentine's Day is also a reminder that God loves us, and that we need to be brave in showing our love to the world and reminding them that God loves us, even when it's difficult. But so what? Well, I've got one thing for you to remember, and one thing for you to think about. Firstly, it's really important that we remember how much God loves us. And there are loads of places you can look in the Bible to read all about that. But it's also important to think about how you show how much you love other people. Sometimes a card is all that's needed. Sometimes it's just a hug. Sometimes it's about doing the things that we don't like or are difficult, like being willing to turn off the TV and help lay the table, or tidying a mess even when you didn't make it, or seeing jobs that need doing and doing them before you're asked. But however we show love, it's not going to be often that we have to risk getting our head chopped off to show someone just how much you love them.